This is fascinating. This is Seth Dillon from the Babylon Bee, who's always been really an actual consistent conservative, American patriot, hasn't gone down the Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens rabbit hole, doesn't have a big problem with Jews in Israel, very supportive actually of the Jewish people in Israel. He's a Christian, I believe, and he tells this really interesting story on the Jeremy Boring show. I'll put the link below to the full thing in the video description, but he talks about some experience he had with Tucker Carlson that I think, frankly, says a lot. Have a watch, and I'll see you on the other side for some further thoughts. And also a reminder, please hit the subscribe button and like and comment and hype, because it helps us to give you more of these videos.
I hate having conflict with people. Like I said, I wasn't looking for conflict. I wasn't trying to create enemies out of people. I am willing to disagree with my friends on issues of importance that I think they're on the wrong side of, and that where they are publicly promoting something that I think is a bad idea. I have no issue with. In fact, I do think we have a moral duty to stand up against even our own friends when they're promoting bad ideology. And so I'm willing to do that. I don't want to have to do that. And I'm also willing to have private conversations with them to try to understand them better, because I would rather not be having a public conversation about some of these issues where, it's all about scoring points and slinging insults and trying to ratio the other person, when you can just pick up the phone and call somebody and talk to them. So,
So tell me about those attempts. You said attempts.
I have had those attempts. I've reached out to both. I've had personal interaction where I've reached out to both myself proactively. I initiated it with both Candace and Tucker over the course of the last couple of years. A couple of times. Where do you want to start with? Which one? I mean, the most recent attempt was with Tucker after Charlie died, after he was killed. I reached out to Tucker and I said, look, we clearly don't see eye to eye on some things. We've had some negative interaction publicly, some back and forth, but there is no reason why we can't find a way to reconcile on a personal level, where we say, if I've mischaracterized anything that you've said or done, I'm willing to apologize for that. I'm open to having a conversation where we try to bury the hatchet and just put that behind us, especially in light of the fact that something's happened to Charlie. This could happen to any of us. It could happen to any of us at any time. And it wouldn't sit right with me if it happened to one of us without us ever having made an effort on that level, despite how deeply I disagree with some of the things that he says. I was willing to say that. And I wanted him to hear that from me. Initially, he was receptive to that. He said something like, amen. I think this is important. It was something brief like that. And then it wasn't long after that someone, apparently, he hadn't been aware that I had commented on Charlie's post saying that Tucker shouldn't be a speaker at AmFest. And I guess someone made him aware of that. And this was after I had reached out to him privately. So he's following up now later, a couple weeks later or something, saying, I wanted to reach out to you directly because I've been told that you were telling Charlie that I shouldn't be at AmFest. And I wanted to hear from you directly if that's true. Were you bullying Charlie and trying to coerce him into not having me at AmFest or whatever? I was like, well, I certainly wasn't bullying him. I expressed my opinion that I don't think that your message should be amplified from that stage. No, I think it should be repudiated from that stage. I stand by that. It was a public comment. That's my opinion, and I'm allowed to share my opinion. And so we had a back and forth about that, where he was prying me for more information, and I had to ask him. I was like, are we having a conversation, just the two of us, or are you looking for content for your show? Right. And because he was about to go live, he's like, I need a response quickly. And I'm like, why do you need a response quickly? What is this for your show? And he wouldn't answer that. And so he immediately, on the heels of that dialogue where I'm explaining, the conversation that I had publicly with Charlie, he then goes on the air and says that, I was one of these thugs and bullies who was pressuring Charlie behind the scenes. And he said behind the scenes too, when there was none of that happening behind the scenes at all. What I was referring to and what I explained to Tucker was literally a public comment.
Right.
So he got the truth from me and then went with his narrative anyway.
I think this story is very telling and should make people understand in no uncertain terms that these people, Tucker and Candace and others, every time people say, we need to reach out to them to try and have a conversation with them, there are some people who are so stuck in their propositions, their hatreds, their resentments, their whatever, that they're not interested in seeing facts. Haven't we figured that out by now? No, they've already got their destination in sight anyway. And so trying to speak to them and expect a good faith discussion is frankly a complete waste of time, because they are working upon bad faith. That doesn't mean that you give up on them, but it means the way you operate has to be completely different. We have to get behind what's really bothering them emotionally. Because the rabbis of the Talmud told us that at least when it comes to hatred towards the Jewish people, this is primarily not an intellectual thing. It's emotional. It's about resentment, jealousy, envy, grievance, that kind of stuff. Resentment of having to take responsibility in the world that the Jewish people remind them of. Jealousy and envy of the Jewish people's role and wanting that for themselves. Isn't it interesting that it looks like that's certainly what's animating part of Candace's whole thing against Erica? That a lot of it's coming from those same kind of dark drives and emotions. So you have to start by working on dealing with that. And it's a problem. But it's very different to just thinking, well, I can have a good faith discussion here. And sometimes, by the way, it can be so deep that it's, not even so possible because people are so stuck in their ways. You can try, but you have to remember who you're dealing with. I think that's really important to bear in mind. Otherwise, we can end up just driving ourselves crazy, thinking and expecting that we're going to get good faith from people who are playing totally different rules to us. It's the same way with, fighting. It's like when we're fighting Hamas, they are not playing by the same rules of the game at all. So that's why things like the Geneva Convention, it would only work in a place where you're dealing with two, Western democracies fighting each other. When you're dealing with people that fight and hide in civilian infrastructure and underground and have absolutely no care for their own people's lives, but you're not allowed to touch them. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But one thing that is true is that for the masses, we can still keep speaking the truth, because there is hope. People that can be swayed, that are open, that don't have as deeply seated emotional, psychological darkness. There's more opportunity there to set the record straight, which is why myself and others continue to do what we do. The State of Israel, the one and only Jewish state, stands accused. Accused of genocide. Accused of targeting and murdering babies. And the accusation doesn't come from the fringes, it comes from universities, from the United Nations, from heads of government. It presents as serious, evidence-based, morally urgent, like the obvious, decent position to hold. But start studying history, and something disturbing begins to surface. Because the accusation that Jews kill children is not new. It's not a response to modern events. It's one of the oldest weapons ever aimed at the Jewish people. For centuries, Jewish communities across the world were massacred under exactly this charge: baby killers. The countries changed, the centuries changed, the evidence was always fabricated. In this JTV Plus documentary, we're going to pull back the curtain on three things. We're going to examine the genocide claim against Israel today and follow the evidence wherever it leads. We're going to show why the genocide claim cannot be separated from anti-Semitism, because when you call the one Jewish state uniquely evil, and the vast majority of Jews support it, you're making a statement about Jews. And most importantly, we're going to trace just how deep this goes, through centuries of blood libel, all the way back to the Torah itself, back to Pharaoh's Egypt. Because it turns out the very first act of persecution against the Jewish people, and the accusation being made against Israel today, share something deeply, disturbingly familiar. And what we find is going to change how you see this. Because this is not a new argument dressed in modern language, it's a very ancient weapon being used again. To watch this JTV Plus documentary and access much more premium content, click on the link in the video description.